Today on the show, we are doing a case study for people who, I don't know, Martin, would you say that they didn't need an advisor?
They thought their affairs were pretty simple. We got this under control. There's nothing to fix here.
Yeah, and that's often like if you're in the Facebook group, and if you do want to join the Facebook group, just put that you heard Martin and Glen on YouTube or on the podcast so we know that you're not spam. But this is the whole thing. We don't need an advisor because we've only got a superannuation account. We own our home.
Simple affairs. Yeah. We don't have complex millions and it costs too much. We can't get any value from what we have to pay.
Yeah.
But hopefully there might be some nuggets of gold that come out of today's case study.
So this is a live, real case study. We have changed the names for anonymity, whatever the word is. And I will actually say as well, look, I used to be a financial advisor. Martin is a financial advisor. We are pro-advice at Retire Right because people get outraged when we are pro-advice. So I'm just putting my flag on the hill, and I always say, if, for example, you need plumbing done, a plumber is always going to say, use a plumber, don't do it yourself.
Don't DIY it.
Because what happens is, actually, I had the exact situation this week. It's not to an extreme.
Yeah.
But here at the studio, the taps in the common area strata, like they've been dripping, and the washers was just rubbish washers, right? So I'm like, I'll go down to Bunnings. I can replace a washer.
DIY, it's a simple thing.
Anyone can do it. Went and got the washers, turned the mains off, opened the tap, pulled the washer out, opened my box of washers. I got 12 mil, not 15 mil. Mm-hmm. I'd already cut the box open from Bunnings. Now, sure, went to Bunnings, another $5. Still cheaper than getting a plumber out, $150 call-out fee and all that. So sometimes you do not need a professional. Yep. You can get it done, get a good outcome. But there are times where you know enough to be dangerous, and it just costs me that extra bit of dicking around.
Yeah, and all the time, and all the peace of mind to know that it's done right and it's done well.
Yeah.
Whereas it might be a home job, that might get us by for a while, but it might end up leaking in a few years' time, and then you have to pay someone anyways.
So everyone, if pretend Martin and I are plumbers, and you've asked us, we need to re-plumb our house, should we do it ourselves? We would be saying, no, you need us because you don't know what the hell you're doing. Sure, you might be able to replace a tap and get away with it, but there's a lot at stake. Yeah. So we'll leave that bit there. We don't need a financial advisor. On YouTube, if you're watching, there is a presentation. If you are listening and you listen on the podcast apps, that's fine. We'll walk you through it, but it primarily is, it has a presentation that we'll follow along. My name is Glen James, joined by Martin McGrath from Financial Edge Group.
Let's talk retirement.
Let's talk about we don't want or need an advisor.
This is a podcast that will help you plan and execute one of the biggest moments in your life. That's retirement. You'll learn how to set up your finances in a way that benefits you, your lifestyle goals, and keeps you in the know within this complex world of money and investing. Your host is Glen James, former financial advisor, author, and host of the popular Money, Money, Money podcast. Glen is joined by experts in various fields around the topic of retirement in Australia. Any advice in this podcast is of a general nature. Full details are in the show notes of this episode. You only retire once, so retire right.
Right. So, again, if you are new to the show, the presentation, it's more to keep us on track so we don't miss things and make it a little bit more visually engaging on YouTube, but we will be reading as we go. If you are on a tractor or truck or riding, you can listen along. I acknowledge that we do have people that listen only. Okay, let's have a look. Current situation, real life clients. Just talk us through the data of what happened.
So as Glen said, this is a real life case study. I've changed the names and also just simplified a bit of rounding of the numbers. But husband, Charlie, 66 and a half, looking to retire at 67, so 6 months away, still working, earning around $90,000 a year plus super. So a decent salary. His wife, Diane, is retired. She's 64, looking after the grandkids. Worked for many years, but retired a few years ago. Charlie has super of around 450,000. Hasn't really done anything with super. It's just work's been putting it in for all these years, never really looked at it, hasn't put more money in, hasn't taken money out. It's just accumulated over many years of hard work. Diane actually did have some super, but she cashed it in. She went, what's the point? I've retired.
She DIY'd it.
She took it out and went, well, I've only got a little bit in there. I'll take what I've got out. And so when they came to us, she had 150 grand sitting in the bank in a term deposit, earning a bit of interest, but not probably working too hard for her.
Okay. Just on that, there's a thing out there, and if you don't know, you don't know. Once you retire, it's not just a call my super fund and pull it out. Because in theory, Diane, if she was scared about the investment, she could have moved it to the cash option and left it in superannuation. So just wanted to dispel a myth there that as soon as you retire, it doesn't mean, oh, I'm retired, I can access my super, I'll pull it all out.
Cash it all in.
Cash it all in.
Ideally, the best way to set up is to turn it into an income stream and live off it, which we'll talk about today.
Get into that, yeah.
But yeah, so Diane at the time had no super. She previously had from work but had cashed it in. So they had 150 grand in the bank. It was in her name. So they were smart to go, well, it was in joint names and the interest might pay more tax. It was in her name, so they paid a bit less tax. And as mentioned, he wanted to retire in 6 months and they wanted to live off $75,000 a year. After tax, they're mortgage free. They downsized a few years ago, so they were debt free. They had bought a new car recently, had no liabilities, had no other major costs coming up, no house renos, but were just ready to stop working and retire.
And they reckon they wanted about $1,400 a week to live off.
Yeah.
So, and the reason we haven't put house values here because it's really not material, is it? It's it could have been $10 million or it could be $800,000. Yeah. All right. So considerations, and we haven't got any kind of bullet points here, but let's just talk some considerations. You're such a bloody accountant. Like, you send me this stuff to prep, and I'm like, what about the friggin' soft goals? Like, so look, we've added considerations because I think it's important to actually look at some of the soft stuff.
I liked it. The numbers tell the story, which we'll get to numbers, but yes, you're right.
That's right. There's friggin' accountant.
There's a human around all this, which is a large part of it, is that what we do is that we help people retire, but how they want to retire, how much risk they want to take, do they want to prioritise themselves or their kids, or maybe if they still got parents around, all those things actually have to come into the advice or the recommendations.
So I think I want to know this. So we've said this on the show before, your business generally doesn't help people with less than $1 million of assets outside of their house. Why did you guys, why? So this person didn't need an advisor, so they thought, didn't want one. Why are we doing it?
How did they land on
it?
Yeah,
why did you guys do this?
Yeah, so this kind of came from, this was a referral or actually a family member of one of our ongoing clients who just said, hey, my sister and her husband, they want to retire. They don't think they really needed help, but we know that you've helped us a lot over the years.
Oh, you're like, all right, send them in. I'll have a
can
chat.
you just, they might not need help, but I'll give them a 20-minute phone call, point them in the right direction. If they need advice, I can send them to someone else.
Yeah.
Or if they might not need advice.
Yeah.
But let's make sure there's no low-hanging fruit to help them with. After that phone call, sent them some Retire Right podcast to listen to and get informed a bit more. And they went, yeah, you're right. You planted some seeds there, some things that we've missed over the last few years. And for me, and when we go through the case study, there was just some pretty significant value that we could add in a short period of time. I did say that there's another advisor you may be able to work with, but their preference was no, we want to work with Financial Edge Group.
We want to work with the goat.
We were, yes. So they were privileged to do so.
You do have a bit of a goatie there.
Yeah, a bit of goat, yeah. Exactly, goat by name. And
growing that?
Nah, trying to probably trim it back a little bit.
Good boy.
So for anyone on the video, it looks looking strong. There's a few white ones in there. So, and again, jumping ahead, we help them.
Yeah.
We more than added value for our fees, and where they probably don't need to pay us for the future.
Yeah,
but
and
there's some value there that we would have done the wrong thing by not helping them for sure.
Now, I will say as well, at the end of this, we're going to put how much you charge them.
Yep.
So stay tuned for that.
Yep.
Okay, so back to the cricket. So general considerations, We don't need an advisor. We're pretty straightforward. When you actually talked initially, did they know that they kind of, we think we just need $1,000, $1,400 a week, or they hadn't thought that far?
They actually thought they couldn't afford that much, and they were worried.
Right.
So he was working, obviously he's paying tax. They weren't putting money into super because they didn't think they could afford to.
Was he self-employed or employee?
No, he was employee. So, sorry, he was work was putting his
Sure.
but he wasn't putting any extra in.
Yeah.
They were scrimping and saving, and they were looking at, well, we've only got $500,000 or $600,000 in super and assets. How long is that going to last us? The age pension, that's only going to be 20 odd grand a year for one of us.
So there can be some inherent worry that we don't have enough to survive.
That was their kind of, and really that was the conversation with their family members who reached out to us of like, we don't think we have enough, therefore we don't want to pay someone, but also we don't really know, and they're like, push, we'll have a chat with our guy, Martin, and he will hopefully give you some peace of mind.
Yeah, okay.
And so I think there's definitely some worry there, and we'll show actually the projections we showed them of they're going to be okay. They can afford that lifestyle. They're as young as they're ever going to be, and they should retire. But yeah, there are considerations. If they wanted to live off a lot more, well, then the advice would have been different. If he wanted to work for another 5 years, then the advice might have been different. So someone's goals and wishes do impact the advice, but often you don't need to know all those answers the first day you speak to an advisor. Those might appear as you go through the process, and we do scenarios as most advisors do.
Or you might ask questions that people
that prompt that.
Don't think about.
If you could afford to retire now and live off that, would you be open to that? Oh, yeah, okay, we would. We didn't think that was actually an option on the table.
Yeah. All right, let's cut to it. The strategies that you ended up implementing, Charlie contributed $50K to super to use as a catch-up concessional contribution. Now, was that part of the 150
so we used the cash.
Diane's
name? And there's a bit of movement of money here, but yes, so simply we took of that cash savings in Diane's name, take 50,000 out of there. Diane, I loaned it to Charlie. That's fine. There's no tax impact of that. Transfer to him. He contributed that straight to his accumulation super fund. Got the BPay details from the website. Well, we help them, but send the money in. That's a direct contribution. Don't have to tell work. Go straight to your super fund. There's a special, an important form to send in called a notice of intent to claim, so that he could claim that contribution back on his tax return.
And then the super fund would take 15% off that 50K.
Yep.
And then he can claim that 50 grand
as a deduction against his wages.
Yep. Cool.
So that was very simple. If he came and saw us after he'd retired, that opportunity would have been gone. In hindsight, if he came and saw us 2 or 3 years earlier, he probably actually could have done more. The 50,000 was around, he had more catch-ups to do, but his salary being 90,000, you don't, even though he had, I think, close to 100,000 of catch-ups to do, you don't want to bring your taxable income down too far.
All right, let's talk now about the super funds themselves.
So Charlie was with an industry fund. We kept him with an industry fund.
No, doesn't every advisor move?
Take you to some in-house product that they get commissions on?
Yeah.
Not at all.
Right. Okay. So you're a financial advisor, and this client you just recommended they stayed where they were.
Yep.
Interesting.
There's nothing wrong with that fund. But he was in the default option. He hadn't changed anything in 20 years plus. Now, we did show there are other options out there, and if you want to have more complex superannuation investments and maybe get the benefits of a wrap account, there are some options there. But again, what we were really trying to help them with, they were comfortable with the fund they were in, but they were in just the default option. So we said, and we went through a bit of a conversation around risk and trade-off and how you invested before, and realised they weren't in the right option for them. Particularly, again, jumping ahead, we were going to draw more heavily upon his super earlier. So we wanted to make sure that if we're going to draw a certain amount out pretty soon, we wanted to stockpile that a little bit. So instead of him having it all in one bucket, we separated into 2 different buckets. He had a more growth-oriented bucket and a more conservative cash fixed interest holdings, so that he could draw those funds out.
So what you're telling me, within the super fund, you just didn't put him in a balanced default 60-40. You split it, so there was 60% in
a high growth, probably 90% allocation.
Right, and then a 40% in literally a fixed income bucket.
Pretty low, probably close to no growth allocation.
And does the super fund, if he wanted to make withdrawals, can you select in the future that you just want it to come off the or
defensive bucket?
Well, that's also and this guy's like, hold my beer. You know, we've just crossed the threshold where I'm about to ask a heap of questions that some funds actually can't cater for, where, you know, the wrap accounts, your other funds, some other public offer funds might be able to do it. Once you're in pension phase, sure, we've got 2 pockets of cash.
Yep.
But if we want to draw $1,000 out a week or whatever that is,
But it's bang on what we all do. Yep.
will the product allow me just to take it from bucket B? Will it be proportionate? Will it only allow you to take it from the one that's got the most in it? These are things that have to be considered. And that's why a good financial advisor will ask the questions and the current product might not be suitable.
Correct.
So I just want to try and get out there and educate the misinformation and fear when people are like, oh, the advisor recommended I move from this industry fund to this other retail fund or wrap product. There's probably a very bloody good reason that will be better for the client longer term. It's not all about what's the cheapest.
No. And also what's right for one person might not be right for someone else. Do we as a business at Financial Edge Group offer industry funds to everybody? No, we don't. But for this client, for these reasons, that's what we deemed the most appropriate to do so and very comfortable with that. So, yeah, that is a product-specific question, but importantly, it's a kind of consideration, personal advice kind of question.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Charlie.
So then on back of that, even though Charlie just put 50 grand in, importantly timing here, after we lodged the notice of intent to claim, we then went and withdrew 200,000 out of his super fund to go to cash.
Okay, this is interesting. You said a little word there in terms of the timing. And this is where I don't need an advisor, but do you know this little part of the strategy?
So I'll come back to why we took 200,000 out, but we want to take some money out to shuffle it around. If we put the 50,000 in and the next day took the $200,000 out, you can't claim that whole 50,000 as a personal deductible contribution because you've made a withdrawal. You need to lodge that form to claim it before you withdraw any funds.
So the notice of intent to claim, that's funny. It's like easy, yeah. Put it in, claim it on tax, done. You really, in a perfect world, you've got to do it before you do your personal tax return. Number one.
Yep.
But as best practice, if you're doing this strategy, do it right away.
So you're not going to forget about it.
Or secondary, if you're not doing any razzle dazzle, and you might put more in June, you want to make sure you do it on the 1st of July or as soon as you can.
Yeah.
And this goes the same if you still got rollovers for insurances.
Withdrawals for that. If you were doing a spouse splitting contribution strategy, if you're about to go to a pension phase, which he will as well, that timing is critical.
But they didn't need a financial advisor.
So what we then is we withdrew $200,000.
Yeah.
Because he was over 60, it's tax-free, and because he was over 65, even though he was still working, you have the ability to access lump sum withdrawals and or regular withdrawals from your super fund tax-free because you've met that condition of release being age of 65 and over.
It's funny, Martin said to me, it's like, oh, we should be able to do 2 case studies in one episode. I'm like, that's cute. Wait till we get talking. And this is where it does come back to product, potentially sometimes. We're putting 50K in, we're taking 200 out. Are we putting any more money back in?
Not for him.
We're not for him. And then I think my question is, I would imagine if you put money in to the super fund and you're going to pull it out the next week, you probably don't want it to get sucked up and invested overnight. So you'd probably want a product potentially where you can elect that new contributions just sit in cash.
Yeah.
And then, then at some point we've got to send the forms in or elect to withdraw.
Yeah.
And that could be a week later, or we've got to wait for the notice of intent to claim. We don't want this money that we're flushing through the market to fall. There could be extra transaction fees at a fund level for buying into the share fund as opposed to a cash option. So I don't know. My brain goes in a million directions with this simple 5-point strategy that you've put together.
100%. And even again, there's different tangents. We could have taken the $200,000 out before we put the 50 in if we really want to get complicated. The reason for that is, the reason I didn't recommend that and I recommend these order of events instead is that he had some tax-free portions in the fund. And so if we took the withdrawal out first and then we put $50,000 in and made that taxable, his ratio would have been higher. Whereas at least this $200,000 withdrawal, we can withdraw a decent amount of the taxable as part of that withdrawal. Again,
which flows through to estate planning and
so future planning. So
blah, blah, blah.
Things you do today have a future impact, but also the order of events do have a future impact. And I'll add this while we keep going. We are, I suppose, discussing today on the assumption that there are first-time listeners here, but if there's things we're speaking about today, there are episodes we've done around what is a contribution, what's a concessional, what's a catch-up. Oh, I didn't know I could take money out of super.
Yeah.
We've done episodes about that, so people hopefully can go and find them if they want to dig into some of those.
And I would actually say as well, I get people message me on Instagram like, hey, Glenn, you spoke about this on an episode. What number is it? I'm like, I've got no friggin' idea.
Yeah.
I do 3-4 episodes a week on a variety of different podcasts. If I need to find something myself that I've talked about, I Google it. Retire Right, Glen James, recontribution strategy, Retire Right podcast, recontribution strategy.
Access to super.
Just throw it in Google and let Google help.
To sort it.
All right. So the last part of this strategy, Diane to start a new super fund. Oh, so we're starting another fund, but even though she closed hers the other day.
Back to the future.
And contribute $200K with the cash that they had and Charlie's withdrawal. Now, talk to us about this, staying in accumulation phase until 67.
So, can Diane go and set up a new super fund even though she's not working? Yes. Can she contribute
up to 75?
She can open at any point. But can she contribute up to the age of 75?
Yes. Okay.
So,
cool.
Diane is doing a contribution different to Charlie's. Charlie did a concessional. He's claiming back on tax. She's not working, so she doesn't need to claim back on tax. She's doing a $200,000 non-concessional. Technically, the limit's 120 and we're using a bring forward. We could have done more, but this was the right amount to still leave them with sufficient personal cash, but move a decent chunk of super and or cash into her name. It's going to be invested. And historically, it would have got a better return than cash, and we're expecting it will in the future. Because she's retired, we could, if we wanted to, move her straight to pension phase. And there's lots of benefits of being in pension phase. But in this case, our advice is to keep her in accumulation phase. Why is that the case? Because when David applies for the age pension when Charlie applies for the age pension in 6 months, any assets...
David may or may not have been his real name, but we'll never know, will we, Martin?
We won't know. When Charlie applies for the pension in 6 months, the assets inside of Diane's accumulation phase are not going to be counted towards the age pension. And I'll show you how much of that has helped save them coming up soon. But that's the reason. So someone could comment and go, well, she could have gone to pension phase and been withdrawing $500 a week. Yes, that is the case. But the right strategy, you need to understand the full circumstances and what you're trying to deliver. And
but strategy is one thing, but order is another big thing.
Yeah. And to maybe, and also ideally, she's going to earn more return on that versus just being in cash over the long term. I'm not going to guarantee what's going to do in the next 6 months or so. But is she paying more in fees? Yes, because in cash she's not paying any fees, in the super fund you're paying fees. But we're going to get a better return. We're going to get a substantial increase in their age pension eligibility. If she wants to access that money, if shit hits the fan and she needs to get money back out, she can. We're not locking it away.
And this is also important. And again, if you're new here, thanks for dropping in and hopefully you're offended by now by me and my comments. No, I don't actually joke. I do offend people, but the myth out there is, we retire, move money to cash, which Di did, and you don't know what you don't know, right?
No.
But the thing is, between their cash and super, call it 600 grand, 500 grand, whatever it was,
bang on,
they're not going to spend that within the next 5 years.
No.
So the question is, as a rule of thumb, generally speaking, we don't want cash hanging around if we don't need it within the next 5 years.
Yep.
So it needs to go to work because we're going to live another 25, 30 years.
Yep.
I was talking to someone the other day whose dad was 92, and I'm like, oh, is this the beginning of the end? He's like, oh, don't know, maybe. And while I was on the phone to him, I Googled like life expectancy 92-year-old male. It was still up at 95 or 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, no, there's still another. Yeah. So let's go to the advice outcomes, and we'll do that now. So, okay, Charlie saved $16K of personal tax. So that's fine, but he had to pay 7.5 in super.
Yeah. And so the way that's also important is we put the 50,000 in. Does he just get that 16 grand straight away? No, he doesn't. He's an employee, so he's paying tax every week on his wages. What's happened or happening when he does his tax return, he will have paid tax on 90 grand, and he probably paid 20 grand in tax. He will actually get a personal tax refund of $16,000 coming directly back to him, personally from his tax return. But to be honest and transparent and be understanding the whole strategy, when that 50 grand goes in, the super fund taxes that at 15%. So he's saved 32% personally. The super fund pays 15%. Overall, a net benefit still of $8,500.
And an advisor will look at the total overall situation. Sure, you might not get it today in super, even if you're doing salary sacrifice at age 50 or 60 and still working. Overall, in your life and your entity of your personal name and super, overall we want to pay less tax.
Yeah.
So, but there's still 8.5K in front in the first year by this strategy.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked about the super and the investment structure, so we won't camp here. So that's set up in a less.
It's more appropriate. Again, more appropriate, better or worse. I'll put the word in, maybe less risk. Overall, they've got less exposure to growth assets, but more importantly, more appropriate to what their needs are.
Yeah.
Super funds have to put you into a default. That default may or may not be the right thing for you.
Diane now has a super fund, and as we mentioned, her money over the medium to long term should beat inflation.
Which would beat inflation, whereas cash typically won't beat inflation. Yeah.
And I guess you could say there's been a big educational component to Charlie and Diane.
In this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, talk to us about this one.
So not only are they going to get the 8.5 grand tax benefit, but in 6 months, when Charlie turns 67, he plans to retire the week before he turns 67. He will be eligible for the age pension. Diane won't be. She'll only be 64 and a half, I think is the way it works out. Because of the strategy we're implementing, he will be entitled to a full age pension for the portion of the couple. We calculated and showed them if they didn't do anything and left the cash in her personal name and left him with a higher super balance, their assessed assets would have been substantially higher, $200,000 higher. What that calculates to is he will get an extra $7,700 a year in money from the government, Centrelink age pension, for the extra 2.5 years until she turns 67. So that equates to an extra $20,000 a year in Centrelink age pension purely by moving some money around and making sure it's sitting in the right pockets.
Gosh. So are you saying, before they sat down and talked with you, that extra tax probably wasn't on the table, the tax savings wasn't on the table, and the extra age pension wouldn't have been on the table?
And they just weren't aware. It's not that. They just didn't. They didn't know. They went, work's putting money into super for us. We didn't know we could put more in. Or we heard the cap was 30. It's not much point anyway, but because he had less than 500,000, they could do some catch-ups. They thought by having the money in her savings, in her cash account, well, that might not count. But no, Centrelink will still assess any personal assets, savings, whether the savings was in Charlie's name, the saving was in joint names, or the saving was in Diane's name, Centrelink is still going to count those. The only place to legally hide money from Centrelink is in your own home. The value of home's ignored, and the value of money in super accumulation if your spouse is below the age of 67, which is exactly this scenario.
Let's have a look now at these sexy graphs. And mind you, everyone who's watching on YouTube, I had to change the name because you didn't remove that other guy's, the original woman's name. So that's why the name there.
Yeah, so we've got Diane's
like I've added
name
over
on
it.
here. So obviously this is a joint projection. It's using the younger spouse's age in this case, being Diane. So what's on the page there is, for someone who's watching along, there's a blue shaded area, arguably in the background.
Can I just pause you for one moment, just so for the avoidance of doubt? This is total couple's money, their situation. However, it's just Diane's age.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
It's not Diane's assets, it's the couple assets. This is combined assets. It's using Diane's age at the bottom. It ignores their home value. It ignores their personal assets like car in this case. Their retirement assets, the shaded area in the background is their retirement assets. Close to $600,000 between his super, her super, and the cash in the bank. And it shows that over the next 20, 30 years of the retirement, that is going to start to slowly go down. It'll drop from 580 to it probably hits 400,000 when she turns around 70. It hits 300,000 when they're kind of in their mid to late 70s. It might hit 200,000. But at life expectancy, the net assets there on the left is $200,000. Now, that'll either be in one or either their super funds, etc. along the way. This is in today's dollars. It's present value. So today's spending power. Practically, it'll probably be worth 300 or 400 in 30 years' time, but in today's spending power, they're still going to have $200,000 worth of assets outside of their family home, either in cash or in superannuation funds. That's that blue shaded area.
Awesome. And then the next slide, because we don't want to bore people who are listening only, this is just all the income of the household, but it's just based, again, on Diane's age.
So what this is showing here, and I showed them during the process, and this was the document they got to take away and keep as a projection for the future. Can they retire and live off $75,000 a year in 6 months' time when they retire? Yes. In the first year, there is a big column because we're moving and shuffling money around. So let's ignore that, skip to the second. In the first 2 years, there's a bit of red and there's a bit of bluey, turquoisey colour. The red is income support, what they're going to get from Centrelink. So the first 2 years, David will get a full pension of his share, and the rest, and that's going to be around $22,000 a year, they're going to take $1,000 a week out of his super.
Awesome.
So not touch hers, take $1,000 a week. In 3 years' time, she will be eligible, Diane will be eligible for the age pension, and they'll both get a part pension, take a bit out of both their super funds.
So money's really not their problem in terms of what they want to achieve. You've set them up, optimize tax, optimize the super accounts, optimize income flow, all that stuff.
Peace of mind that their money is going to last and they'll be able to spend and retire, spend what they deserve to spend.
Yeah.
In 10 or 15 years' time, they said, well, we'll probably spend less. We might do less trips and travel.
Yeah.
So we'll potentially drop that down a bit at that point in time, but giving them the peace of mind and confidence to get all the savings and the tax savings now, but also know they can retire in 6 months' time.
Well, how much did it cost them? We will talk about it right after this.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. If you would like help based on your own personal situation, head over to retireright.com.au, click Get Help, and we'd be happy to introduce you to one of our trusted professionals. Our panel of vetted financial advisors and mortgage brokers work with people all over Australia, so they can connect with you wherever you are. That's retireright.com.au and click Get Help.
Okay, we're back. They would have had to pay a fee for this. I'll just dispel some myths again. Any type of investment or superannuation product in Australia at the moment, it's not possible for any financial advisor to get a kickback, commission, anything hidden. Advisors can take a fee for some of the work that's proportionate to the super fund from the super fund. Some industry funds and other funds will allow that. That's number 2. Number 3, if there was some advice proportionate to the cost on personal tax affairs,
advice,
that can be personally tax deductible as well.
Agreed, yep.
So I guess the figure that you're going to show us is the net figure that your business receives. Their super funds and personal returns would claim that on tax.
Yep.
So it could be maybe 30% less than the number.
Yep.
So how much did it cost for your advice?
So to your point, we charge our advice. We get paid from the clients. And in this case, the cost of our advice was $7,700.
Yeah. Okay. Was that, it's like, we worked out extra $7,700 in Centrelink, we'll just take the first year of that, or did it just line up?
That was our quoted fee from the first phone call before I knew the benefits there.
Right.
In our business, that is at our minimum, or even a slight discount to our minimum. There is a minimum cost to serve clients, like anyone. Like you said, a plumber's going to have a minimum call-out fee.
Yeah.
A financial advisor is going to have a minimum fee as well. The way that we work and the way that many advisors work is it's not just 1 hour of work. It's not just a 1 hour meeting. In this case in particular, we had 3 meetings over 3 months.
Yeah.
It was probably 10 weeks in total. Face-to-face work, behind the scenes, helping them with their paperwork.
Did you help? Okay, so I was going to ask that. Part of that on cost of advice up front, that included what we'd call implementation. So we'll help organise the paperwork and the order, sign this, then we'll do
Here's
this.
the withdrawal form.
Then we'll do the investment switch, then we'll set up a new fund.
Exactly.
Did you put Diane's super fund with the same super provider as Charlie?
I presented those options and we agreed to that together, and we agreed, or actually the client agreed, that they want to actually have 2 separate providers.
Was that just for risk mitigation?
Yeah, I was happy either way. I showed them some options of simplification, keeping it all with one.
Yeah.
Here's an alternate that is similarly cost. It was slightly cheaper. Here are the returns in the past, but not guaranteeing the future. I'm comfortable either way. Our fee's not changing, depends on what option you pick.
Yeah, knock
and they
yourself
said,
out.
actually, we're happy to kind of mix it up. We'll go one for me and one for her kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yes, we help implement all that. New application forms for her, direct debit forms to move the money in. Yeah, so the cost of that for us was $7,700. As you mentioned, a portion of that is going to be tax deductible on their tax return. So a further tax saving that I didn't put in that previous slide. And for us, that's payable deposit on day one, an installment through the way, and then a final invoice.
Did you recoup any of this money from the super funds?
In this case, we didn't.
Or they had the cash anyway.
They had the cash.
Matter, yeah.
So in this case, we didn't. In sometimes we do, but in this case, we didn't.
Now, if you read in the Facebook groups and online chatter, financial advisors only want to sign people up on regular ongoing payments and forevermore amen. Here you've noted that there was no ongoing offered or needed. So this was here is our flat fee. We'll do the strategy. We'll get you on your way. Tap on the bum.
Implement it all.
You can run along merry
100%.
way.
Do financial advisors offer ongoing? Yes. Does Financial Edge Group offer that? Yes. But only when it's needed. And so right up front with even the first phone call, I said, you may not need an advisor. Let's have a chat and see if we can. Yes, there's clearly some help here you're going to need. But I think once we get this all fixed for you over the coming months, you'll be on your merry way. So we didn't even offer ongoing advice. Would there be some benefit to them? Well, maybe some hand holding, but I
first, and this is where you get a bit technical, no one needs an advisor until they do, because now what's going to happen is in 2 or 3 years, they're going to we need $20,000 because we want to go on a big holiday. Whose super fund do we take it from? What investment option do we take it from? I mean, sure, you can put a withdrawal form in, but often more questions will come up and they will need a phone call to somebody, and often it's the person who set the strategy up. And what should we do? It's like, well, you didn't want ongoing advice in certain situations. You were adamant you didn't need it. We recommended it and baked it into your cash flow when you can afford it, and you elected not to do it.
Yeah.
But that's just a bit of a tangent.
100%. And even to that point, is there some help they're going to need in the future? Well,
and then like rebalancing of the portfolios.
Rebalancing. We've told Diane to move to pension phase at 67. That's 2.5 years away. If she was an ongoing client, we would help with the paperwork and implement it, but she's going to be doing that by herself. If they want to adjust the pension payment, well, she'll start to get the age pension, so they'll have to apply themselves. Then, they were taking $1,000 a week out of his. In our advice document, we've said in 2.5 years' time, drop his to X and increase hers to Y. An ongoing advisor relationship would do all that for them. Now, would they get value from the cost? That's for them to decide in some cases and go, I'm a DIY, I'll do that myself. I'm happy to. For many people, it's go, I don't know, because what I wouldn't want these people to do is to leave hers in accumulation forever, not apply for settling. So as long as they're going to be proactive.
I think the thing that gets up my goat in our Retire Right Facebook group is people will come in hot saying, you don't need an advisor, you can DIY. Hey, not everyone is like you, bro. People, because it's not hard to look up all these rules and do it yourself.
Yeah.
It's not hard for me to fix the tap, but it's going to take me longer. I'm going to spend more than I ordinary thought. I might friggin' wreck it. You live by the sword, you die by the sword.
And that's a tap worth a few $100. It's not your retirement worth $500,000 and the peace of mind.
So that's why we kind of bang on it, because we see this crap every day. But just finishing, the couple over 10 years is $50K better off than if they didn't invest that gross $7,700 net, probably less.
$4 or $5 grand. I mean, they're like intangibly in the first couple of years, $8.5 grand of tax saved, 20 grand of pension. So there's 30 grand already. But our software can kind of predict what that would have looked like and leaving the cash in the bank versus what the return is going to be.
Yeah.
It was about 50,000 rounded down, but
I kind of, when I was practicing, and I need to stop saying this because it was about 3 million years ago now, but generally it's not always the case because there are other soft benefits. The advice should pay for itself within the first 2 or 3 years.
And this is evident, hopefully, in this case study of, why would you pay $7 grand? Well, they didn't know. They wouldn't have done anything. They would have missed 30 grand of benefit in the first 2 years. And
the value, sure, the hard numbers are done, but they actually, part of that spend is knowing that we ticked every box, we optimized in every corner in terms of the investment allocation, superannuation accounts, income tax, Centrelink. Would you pay, call it net $5 grand, right? Would you pay $2.5 grand to somebody to say, hey, can you just make sure that we have, with our retirement lump sum nest egg, that we've done everything to give us that peace of mind? Yeah. Would you pay that $2.5 grand? And that's half the advice cost. Not saying that it's the full or half, but this is a peace of mind play. And I won't say this publicly, Martin. Oh gosh, he's looking at me. But if you do something, my friends, yourself, and you stuff it, good luck. If you go to an advisor and life and mistakes happen and there's whoopsies and they stuff it, you won't be paying for it. Trust me.
Yeah.
So look, there's just that
100%.
So much stuff goes into the cost and value of advice that isn't this, you want to charge me $7,000, what's my investment return going to be? Will I make that $7,000 a year back by investment returns? We haven't even freaking looked at it. No. Given that we're investing her $200K now, or the $150 that's going to be invested, there will be a portion over the next 5 years that investment returns will recoup that.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, I'm just so passionate about this because I'm a true believer in the value of financial advice. I saw a review that someone said we're rambling fools and all we do is promote advice. Yep, this is the plumbing podcast and we promote plumbers and getting a plumber to do your renovation.
Yeah.
So at me if you want, everyone, go for it. But you don't have to do anything. You don't want to do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not...
And if you're DIY and you've got this, go, well, I'll do it myself, perfect.
Knock yourself out.
But yeah, one thing that frustrates me is, well, are you going to get me a high percentage return? Well, no. Again, in this case, we're using the product they're already in.
Yeah.
What we're doing is getting what I like to refer to as the strategy and the structure. What's the strategy? Okay, I want to retire. I want to do this. Perfect. Well, what's the structure to do that? It doesn't matter whether we're picked Fund A or Fund B. That's not how we're going to add our value. This
is the crazy thing. When the people say, don't get an advisor, don't pay for it, do it yourself, right? You can get information everywhere online. But my mum's in the Retire Right Facebook group. If she put a question up, what are we going to do? And someone just lobbed in, oh, don't pay an advisor, just do it yourself. Mum wouldn't know where to flip and start anyway. You know, when they retired, I had not been practicing for a couple of years. Sure, I could do it. But I'm like, I know enough
to be
dangerous. And I'm just not on top of this stuff every day. So that's why, anyway, if you do want to reach out and get advice, I would actually suggest you go to retireright.com.au. And what will happen is there's a button there called Get Help. There's a form there that I'll ask you high-level information. That comes into the inbox. I'll personally look at it. If you're a fit for Financial Edge Group, Martin's business, and if they've got capacity at the time, I'll 100% send you to Martin's business if there's a right fit and all that.
Yep.
Full disclosure, I will do that. If you're not the right fit, there's other providers around Australia that will be able to help. But any of the people that we refer you to in that initial kind of chat, if they don't think they can add value, if they don't think it's worth you getting advice, they will not take you on as a client. Because, you know, one of our businesses just last month, I think I sent them over 50 people.
Yeah.
They're too busy to try and just smash and grab all leads. It's like, no, we can help you. This is the cost. Want to do it? Sweet. So there's a high level of trust and accountability. So, but
100%.
Don't call Martin direct because you might not be the fit for his business.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, call him if you're lonely and want to chat.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, 100%. And that's where even like this case study, it's not a typical client of us, but we want to help, and we knew there was value there to help. And given the relationship more broadly that this client's family connects to, it made sense to do so.
Yeah.
But, and we've got some other case studies come up with some more meaty kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think maybe the next 2 weeks there'll be case studies, everyone.
Yeah. So there's some good opportunities there. And also to that point, Financial Edge Group is a business. We've got more than one advisor, myself and the other advisors in the team. We work closely together. And so any advisor you work with from our business, you're going to get a similar quality advice relationship, I think is also key.
Yeah. Hey, if you found this episode useful, why don't you send it to a friend or family member who might be 5 or 10 years out of retirement? Because, you know, this case study that we've just went through, there would have been more savings and more optimization.
So 18 months earlier, we could have saved even more.
Yeah, so there you go. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching on YouTube. I appreciate it. My name's Glen James, and this is
Martin McGrath.
Bye.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive, Pty Ltd, and Glen James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds Financial Services Licence 451289. Martin McGrath, Financial Edge Group, and its employed financial advisors are authorised representatives of Synchron Advice, AFSL 243313. Opinions or comments from any guest on the podcast are theirs, and not those of the hosts, the publisher, or their respective licence holders.